nervous they are in Dallas, because if he goes on and wins a title this year, it doesn't matter if 5 years from now they win a title, forever we will say, what a dumb move.
This is Unsportsmanlike with Evan Canty Michelle, coming to you live from above the Heineken Redick at Pier 17. And joining us now, Jadakiss's favorite NBA reporter, Brian Windhorst. Can you tell, Wendy, a Hoop Collective podcast available Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'll be on Get Up, First Take, every NBA show. Can you tell us what happened with you and Jadakiss? Because this is amazing.
Well, I walked in the hotel in L.A. last week. The Mavericks were in town. And God Shamgod is a Mavericks assistant coach and a New York legend, by the way. God Shamgod is in the lobby, who I know. I said hello to him. And he says he has two guys with him. He says, this is my friend. I don't remember, I'm sorry, who the first guy was. I don't mean to offend him. I don't remember. And he goes, and this is my other friend, Jadakiss. I was thinking, Jadakiss. I don't exactly know. Right? I didn't recognize Jadakiss, right. But there's only one Jadakiss.
That's probably true.
So it was nice. And then after we were leaving, and he was like, hey, can I get a photo with you? Like, it's on his phone. It's not on my phone. So
Jadakiss asked for and he posted it.
I'm very appreciative of Jadakiss's support. I've often said that.
Wendy, let's start with, before we get to LeBron and Steph, let's start with the news around Kyrie, obviously out for this season. We've talked so much, as we should, about the Luka trade, but there's one scenario that I want to present here. What happens if? What happens if inevitably Kyrie Irving says to the Mavs this offseason, I want a max deal for 4 years, and declines his player option, and they have to now give it to him off of an ACL? Do they do it?
So on one hand, it's kind of tough to talk about his contract when he hasn't even had surgery yet. So I want to acknowledge that, but you're asking a question that the people in the league are talking about. So I don't know if you saw this, and I don't have it right in front of me, but late last night, like almost 10 o'clock Eastern, Nico Harrison put out a statement on Kyrie's injury, and it was, appropriate and sympathetic and everything, but it was incredibly, overwhelmingly complimentary of Kyrie and his place in the organization and what he's meant to the franchise the last couple of years. And set again, obviously he's just suffered this horrible injury, but set against the way the Mavericks talked publicly about Luka, much less what they thought and might have said privately. That was amazing. The second thing is, if I'm Kyrie's agent, which is his stepmother, Shatalia, who's done a great job as his agent.
Yeah,
I'm looking at this and I'm saying, how could they possibly not take care of Kyrie when they say all these things? So he's got a $44 million player option. I think probably what will happen is that Kyrie is going to get his surgery and he's going to go through his early stages of rehabilitation and maybe see where he is in June. Because if he is making good progress in June and he thinks that he might be able to get back for a majority of the season next year, it might make sense to just pick up the player option. Mm-hmm. But if he's not sure he's going to be able to demonstrate next year and maybe prove his contract, he might have a measure of leverage. And I know that sounds crazy, that you would opt out of a $44 million contract when you aren't sure how much you can play the next year. But he does have some leverage. I could see that happening.
Wendy, how does the Kyrie injury impact Anthony Davis in the short term and long term in Dallas?
I don't think they've come to any decisions yet. However, Anthony Davis has got to seriously consider just shutting it down. I mean, this injury that he had, they were getting opinions and debating about whether he needed surgery or not. And they elected to rehab, and they wanted to go very slowly in the rehab to make sure that he was taken care of before coming back out. Considering what they're faced with right now, I think they're going to get to the place where he's not going to play. Derek Lively is coming off of a broken bone in his foot. He's doing some workouts, but is still wearing a boot. I don't see why you're going to rush him at all. And if he can come back, he can, but makes no sense. Daniel Gafford has a grade 3 sprain of his knee. Again, I am not a doctor, nor am I monitoring his workouts, but I think there's a reasonable chance that he is also done. Wow. They are in 10th place and falling. And I think the decision is going to get made for them. They did this 2 years ago. They shut down their team at the end of the season. They were fined for it. and they ended up getting a lottery pick with Derek Lively, which is a difference-making player. And so and by the way, I don't have a problem with any of it. I don't think they should rush any of these guys back. I don't think it's like, taking healthy players out of the mix. I think they should play for their draft pick right now. And it's unbelievable to say that for a team that, really, if you go back to Christmas Day when Luka got hurt, when he hurt his calf, they were one of the best teams in the Western Conference at that time. And the idea that on Christmas Day that would be a lottery team, that's an impossibility. And the idea of where they were a month ago, watching AD and Kyrie play together in that first half, the idea they would be a lottery team is unthinkable, but that's where we are.
Wow. Well, let's talk about the team on the other side of the deal and the LA Lakers. Obviously, a lot of questions about Luka and LeBron, who 50,000 points, first player in NBA history to do that in the regular season. But I want to ask you about JJ Redick, the coach, because heading into this season, we had a lot of questions about how he was going to be in this role. We had quite literally never seen him coach at this level before, and he's done a really, really good job up until this point. So can you shed some insight for us, Brian, on why JJ Redick has been so effective?
Well, first off, he's not afraid to be a little risky. He's not afraid to do some things with his game plan that maybe other teams would not. And honestly, what I'm seeing right now that I think is interesting, they're just letting opponents shoot threes. And what I mean by that is they're picking the weakest three-point shooter on the court at all times and not defending him. Last night, it was often Jose Alvarado with the Pelicans. And they're taking the second worst three-point shooter on the floor and only kind of half guarding him. And what they're doing is they're protecting the paint more with that. And I think JJ, he has not articulated this, but knowing him a little bit, I kind of think he's like, I know what a good three-point shooter is. I was a good three-point shooter. I see a lot of people out there taking a ton of threes that are not really good three-point shooters. So let's take advantage of that market inefficiency. And they are, I think in the last 6 weeks, they're allowing the third most threes. So they're just telling teams, go ahead, shoot it, we dare you. And it's working. Now, there are going to be nights where they catch a team who just gets hot and they're going to be in trouble. But their offense is so strong that they're going to be able to survive some of that stuff. And guys, last night, like Luka and LeBron had their first 30-30 game, Luka is getting his legs underneath him. He's got 11 threes in the last 2 games. Their offense is going to provide grace for that style of defense. They gave up, and I want you to listen to what I'm about to say. They gave up 17 baskets to Zion Williamson in the paint last night. Did you hear that? 17 baskets to Zion Williamson in the paint last night and won the game running away with it.
Wow.
So, yeah, they have some issues, but now that Luka is getting going, it's really turning into something you can pay attention to.
Brian Windhorst, NBA Insider, Hoop Collective Podcast, joining us here on Unsportsmanlike, presented by Progressive Insurance. All right, you were at the Knicks and the Warriors last night. The Warriors are 9-1 now, I believe, with Jimmy in the lineup when he's playing games. Can they make a big run here?
Yes. What we have setting up in the league right now, for everybody that wants to talk about the style of play or whatever narrative you want to get off on your barbershop chair or whatever, what I'm telling you is we got something cooking because the Lakers believe in themselves. LeBron believes in the team. Luka is getting comfortable. They're great on defense. That team is cooking. The Warriors, listening to the way Jimmy Butler and Steve Kerr and Steph Curry talk about playing with each other, I understand why Draymond, now I'm not on Draymond's path where he's saying they're winning the title. Draymond said that for a reason. You hear Steve Kerr talking about how Jimmy Butler is changing the way the Warriors play. What I mean by that is they've always been like a high turnover team. Jimmy Butler takes care of the ball. The Warriors have not been a very good defensive team in recent years. Jimmy Butler defends. Now they're defending. Jimmy Butler talking about like how he's learning to play alongside Steph, and he's like watching how his man reacts in ways when he does actions with Steph he's never seen before. This team is 9-1. They play tomorrow night in Brooklyn, and then they have a 7-game homestand. And they are going to be on the same side of the bracket as the Lakers, I think. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has 50 points 4 times in his last 19 games. The Cleveland Cavaliers are a buzzsaw right now. I have not even mentioned the Celtics, so the defending champions, and the team that think is the favorite to win the title. If you don't think we are headed for an amazing spring, I can't help you, because I am seeing potentially an amazing set of circumstances, particularly in the Western Conference.
Well, Wendy, one thing's for sure, the Sixers aren't headed toward that amazing spring that you're talking about. All right, so we got the news that they're shutting down Joel Embiid, and that begs the question, what are the Sixers going to do with Embiid and Paul George long term?
They're going to pay them, and they're going to have them on their roster because they can't trade them. So at least not in a way that they can meaningfully improve. And so they're going to have to make the best of the situation. Joel has come out and said he's not come out and said, but he has said to people on the record that he thinks he might need surgery. You have not heard the Sixers say anything about surgery. So what we can deduce from that is that there is a variety of ways to try to get him healthy. They have to spend the spring and summer trying to get him healthy. He's owed $250 million over the next 4 years.
Wow.
Paul George is owed $160 million over the next 3 years. 150, 160 over the next 3 years. You're not getting out of those contracts. Not that you couldn't trade them, but the idea that you could trade them and get back comparable return doesn't exist. So their only choice is to try to find some things to pivot the roster. Look, it can be done. You look at a team like the Detroit Pistons. That team was terrible a year ago. They made some maneuvers around the edges. Their star players got healthy. You can make a massive difference in your team in 365 days. They just have to have a run of smart moves and getting those guys healthy.
Last thing here with Brian Windhorst, Hoop Collective Podcast, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Bontemps McMahon, just phenomenal. Gets me through every single run I have, which is a lot. I don't look like it's a lot, but it's a lot, I promise you. Wendy, you see things in the NBA before others see them without making predictions simultaneously. So I would like you to look ahead for us. Is there something we should be keeping an eye on? You just gave us an amazing breakdown in spring and summer. Mm-hmm. But is there something that we should be keeping an eye on the rest of the season or into the summer that we're not paying attention to enough right now?
That the heart of why the Mavericks didn't pay Luka Doncic or trade Luka Doncic was because they didn't want to pay him. At the end of the day, they did not think a $300 million investment was smart in Luka. We could spend hours debating whether that's true or not, but that's what they saw. The idea that we are in an era where you just take all your players on your roster and just immediately pay them the max, just no matter what, that era, I believe, is coming to a close. I believe we are just at the beginning of seeing teams getting, especially that second max contract, and just instantaneously handing it to them. And so when we watch guys in the middle of their careers, let's see how these playoffs go, and let's see when some of these extensions come up, whether those extensions get done. That's just we're in a new era right now where you cannot make a mistake on a big contract, which is the lesson that the Sixers and the Suns, to a certain extent, are learning right now. So I know you're going to ask for more. I'm just going to put that out there.
No, I know you well enough to not do that. Yeah. Well done. Brian Windhorst, you'll see him on Get Up at 8 a.m. Eastern, first take after that. Always awesome. Hoop Collective Podcast as well. CC, you said 5 Hour Energy was created to deal with people like me in life.